I had seen several rough cuts, and obviously I loved the movie. I mean, I thought it was brilliant.
I was here in San Francisco editing the film.
Yeah, that worked good.
When Bob Evans told me that, Francis, if you bring the film down to L.A. and show it to me, and it's over 2 hours and 10 minutes, we're going to yank the film and bring it and finish cutting it in L.A., which is something I really didn't want. I wanted to stay in San Francisco because I had control of it.
And he said, you know, they're going to take this movie away from me if it's 1 minute over what is in the contract. And they're waiting to do that.
So we removed about half hour and brought it down to Paramount and showed it to them. And Evans was very grave. And he looked at me and he says, you know, you shot a movie, but you brought me a trailer. And we're taking the film to L.A. So I figured, oh, I get it. If I had shown you the 2 hour and 45 version, you're taking it to L.A., and I show you the 2 hour 10 version, you take it. So you were going to take it to L.A. no matter what I did. So I shrugged, and I just put the half hour back into it.
When they saw it short, even they realized that they couldn't stand by their contract. That actually it was really a very, very good movie.
Films before that, if they were over 2.5 hours long, had an intermission. And I think it was Evans's decision not to let them off the hook. He said, no, because we were ready to put an intermission in after the killing of Sollozzo. That was where it was going to go. That those big operatic chords were going to say intermission. And then the montage that followed that would be to get you back into the movie. And Evans said, no, we're not going to have an intermission. It's too powerful. We don't want to let them off the hook. Nino Rota wrote the music. Nino was the composer for Fellini, and Francis had great admiration for all of Nino's tracks, and he wanted that kind of sound for the film. Of course, it's one of the most identifiable pieces of music that exists for motion pictures, but it was not well received by the studio when it was first heard. The reaction was, get rid of it, it's wrong for the film, and the focus came on the horse's head scene. It was one of the things that Evans mentioned. I hate that music. And we thought, well, what's there to hate? But I looked at it later, and as it was written, and in fact, it got too ominous too soon. So I ordered up another print of the opening trumpet and thought, maybe if we use that as the opening piece of music, and just faintly hear that music and hear the crickets, and then at a certain point, we can make a crossfade to the music as it was written. When you first notice that there's blood on the sheets, you're hearing actually two pieces of music at the same time. It just makes you feel kind of queasy, and you don't know why. And then once the sheet gets pulled back, so I prepared this piece of recut music and called up Evans's office and said, I'd like to show Mr. Evans something that an experiment that we've done with the horse's head scene. It finished. The theater stayed in darkness for a moment, and he said, "It's great! It's great! Get me a telephone!"
I would love to see all the scenes that were never included, because there's a very brave thing he did in terms of time and jumping time. He's in Sicily. But when he suddenly comes home, Kay is walking with all these school kids, and Michael pulls up in the car and gets out. And he and Kay see each other. And a lot of time has passed.
How long have you been back?
I've been back a year.
And Michael, in one cut, looks like the Michael that we're about to see in Godfather 2.
It's good to see you, Kate.
Whatever scar tissue has grown to clog one of the arteries to his heart,
I'm working for my father now, Kate.
it happened off camera.
He's been sick.
And maybe some stuff on the cutting room floor, or it was just an audaciously brave time cut.
I thought you weren't going to become a man like your father. That's what you told me.
But we see him in Sicily, and he loses his wife, and the next time we see Michael Corleone, he is the Godfather that we are going to witness throughout the evolution of that picture and right into the next two films.
The reason I made The Godfather 2 was because I'd always wanted to do an original personal art film about a father and a son at the same age. I think the dramaturgy of Godfather 2 is just flimsy enough that it needed the juxtaposition of the two eras, that one helped the other.
Godfather 2 maybe is more Francis Ford Coppola's movie because it takes huge chances in changing the form of storytelling and altering the common narrative.
Michael, say goodbye.
Usually when you're editing a movie, you find the internal pace of it, and it's a building process. That pace can accelerate or slow as the story dictates, but usually it's a pace that builds and then delivers you to the end of the film. Because of the structure of Godfather 2 and the difference in the pace of the two internal stories, one was always doing a change-up on that pace. And often it would pull the rug out from under your feet. And ultimately, that was the difficulty in the structuring of the film. How you could still keep the audience emotionally involved in the film by still keeping the integrity of the material.
Of course, when we finished it and first showed it, people didn't like it. Generally, the response was, oh, well, it's not as good as the first one. I remember one screening I showed it, and that was that reaction. I was so embarrassed. At this party, I just went and hid under the bed, and I just watched everyone's feet because I could hear their comments about it, you know. And then finally, I got these ideas, and with my editors, I worked on it for like a feverish 5 days and made 120 picture changes.
When you shorten the story and keep cutting away from it, you limit emotional involvement. And Francis's ultimate decision was that we would try and cut back and forth fewer times to keep the audience involved.
And then we previewed it in San Diego, and the reaction was much better.
There was more of a Hollywood tradition in the storytelling with Godfather 1, and there was an anti-Hollywood approach to the telling of the second Godfather story.
Finally, the picture came out, and it got not good reviews. But then, little by little, over the months, I've started hearing, you know, the second Godfather, you know, I like that even better than the first one. And then, of course, by the end of the year, when it won all these Oscars, I mean, again, I was astonished for a second time.
Nice job.
All right. Little girl,
Yes, sir.
close it into the center if you would, sir. Here, smile.
I remember working on the beginning of Godfather 3 while Lisa Fruchtman was working on the end of Godfather 3 after Mary's death,
14.
and Michael screaming at this horrible thing that had happened. And as editors do, they play the scene over and over again. And so during the course of the day, I heard that scream and other screams many, many times. That planted the seed for an idea which was the inverse, the opposite of the subway sound in Godfather 1. In that scene, we have a very emotionless face, and yet the sound is this intense screaming of metal. And there's a wonderful juxtaposition between his seeming passivity compared to what Clemenza asked him to do and this screaming sound. And here at the end of the film is kind of the opposite. This is the scream that, in a sense, he should have screamed back when he committed that first murder, which caused his whole life to turn upside down and to create this nightmare that was his life. And now the nightmare has really come true. His daughter is dead. The family that he was trying to protect is dead.
Oh, God! Oh, God!
So I thought, since he's got diabetes and trouble with his heart, maybe this will kill him. So what would happen if we pulled the scream out so that you saw a face and you saw somebody exerting a tremendous amount of effort, but you didn't hear anything? And that gives us the opportunity to cut to a number of the other participants. We see each of them wondering, what's going to happen? And then he collapses. And that allows us also to do something that came up in the post-production, which is to go back to him dancing with the women in his life.
Observing a man's decline is often a little more fascinating than watching the rise of a career. The fact that you love the first Godfather so, and you love Brando and the whole family, and then yet when you sit back and you realize the life that they lead and the choices that they've made, Michael is, the moral justice that comes with those acts.